All right. Hey, everybody. This is assignment 13, part 2. So the data set that I used for this particular section of assignment 13 was the IRIS data set that Orange had actually done a lot with in the beginning with some of the videos that we were working with. Over here, if you look at our select columns, there are four different four different features and then one different variable. So as I was looking at those, I thought that would be a good data set to use. Over here, you can see before the clusters are made, kind of all the 150 data points. And then over here, after the data is clustered, we have our clusters here and then where they input into the different clusters. So Orange is telling us that for this data, that two clusters make the most sense. So we'll look at those two clusters and then we'll kind of play with it after that. So here are the two main clusters that they were talking about. Let's see what happens when we put cluster there. Okay, so we're in two clusters. Now what I want to do is I want to see what happens with it when we change. We'll go to fixed, and then we go to 3. Kind of interesting there. If we go to 4, it segments it out a little bit better, which 4 is actually pretty interesting. 2 makes sense, of course, because they are very well separated, but 4 actually makes a lot of sense. You got this here, the blue, the red, the orange, and the green. So it actually makes a lot of sense for that as well. Very interesting to do that rather than just to go with a fixed that they say. So you can go all the way up to 8. Let's see what happens. That's not real great. And it gets more understandable once you get down to 4 and then 2. So we can switch some of the inputs here in the Y and the X axis, petal width and sepal length. Those are very well separated. You add 3, 4, and not so much. So 2 is probably best there. If we went with sepal width and petal width, very good difference there. And that starts to cluster things. So make things a little more difficult to understand. Let's go sepal length and petal width and sepal length and sepal width. There we go. Okay. So it is interesting to choose a different data set to kind of analyze how these things fit together. You know, I really enjoy this different visualization just because it allows you to change it in real time and kind of see what would work best for the type of visualization and the way that you're trying to interpret the data. So I really do appreciate the k-means clustering stuff, whether it's looking at, you know, this type of data set or the previous one that we worked with. The housing, you can take a lot of inputs and a lot of variables and somewhat classify them based on where they land. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was fun to work with, and I thought it was interesting how the tables changed once the clusters were put in there, and then how to interpret the clusters once all the information was in there. So that was part 2. We'll jump over to part 3 in just a second.